Hey guys, welcome back. I know it's been crazy once again with all the hurricane stuff and whatnot, but I just wanted to do a little review because as I'm getting through a lot of your stuff that I'm grading, I'm noticing a lot of struggles still with identifying subjects, verbs, types of sentences, you name it. I'm still seeing quite a few issues. So I just wanted to sit down and review with you guys a little bit and go through all the things that we've been talking about one more time just to kind of make sure everything's clicking the way it needs to. And I do have a couple of extra things that I'm going to be mentioning. I got some notes down here, so if I'm looking down, it's because I'm looking at some notes I have here just because I want to make sure I cover everything for you guys. Um, so first things first, I do want to talk about some terminology. So we started the semester with a really hefty couple of terms. So we started with nouns, pronouns, verbs, and modifiers. So we know that nouns are a person, place, thing, idea, or animal. And we know that a pronoun is something that replaces one of those things. So, for example, if I'm talking about, if I'm talking about myself and I would use I wouldn't say Miss Jenkins, blah, 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 blah. Like, I would replace it with the pronoun I. And you can do that with just about any noun. So a noun is a person, place, thing, idea, or animal. A pronoun is a word that replaces it. So the pronouns are I, we, he, she, it, they. All of those are pronouns that you guys should be super familiar with using. A lot of you are using them extremely, frequently in your introduction letters, but of course it is about you, so I did expect quite a few pronouns. So you're good with nouns and pronouns. Hopefully you're able to identify them. I'm seeing most of you are able to identify those pronouns, but you struggle you're able to identify nouns, but you're struggling to identify the pronouns. So just keep that in mind, that a noun is a person, place, thing, or idea, and a pronoun is a replacement for that. So again, I, we, he, she, it, you, they are the general pronouns. We started talking about verbs. Verbs have several categories, and some of them, again, I'm going to repeat for you down here. So generally a verb is a part of a sentence that conveys some kind of action or state of being. So it either is what you are, or it's what you're doing, or what it is doing, depending on the sentence, of course. But all sentences will have a noun or pronoun and a verb. So again, when we're talking about a noun or a pronoun in a sentence, when we're looking for those elements in a sentence, yes, you may find multiples, but typically I'll ask for a subject. So a subject is either a noun or a pronoun that is the topic or the subject of the sentence. And the verb is describing what that thing is, so its state of being, or what it's doing, its action. So there are several kinds of verbs we have talked about. So one is the action verb, which also is called a transitive verb. So action verbs or transitive verbs are verbs that express physical or mental activity. So I have a couple of examples here. The owl hooted all night. That's a physical action, hooted, the sound being created. Gloria plays volleyball. Plays obviously being your verb there. It's an action, physical action. She thought about the problem, thought, mental activity. I believe you, believing, mental action, something that you're doing. So again, those are action verbs or transitive verbs. Then we move on to linking. So linking and auxiliary verbs are where you guys seem to get a little tripped up. So linking verbs express a state of being, and it's a linking verb connects or links again, using that title, the subject to a word or word group that identifies or describes the subject. So here's an example. Denzel Washington is an actor, so it connects. Think of linking as connecting, like a chain. So it connects Denzel Washington, the subject of the sentence, to his state of being. He is an actor. That's his job title. So it's connecting those two parts of the sentence to make a complete sentence with a complete thought. Another example is the children remained quiet. So the children and quiet, it's connecting those two ideas. The children remained quiet. It's not quite an action. It's not quite a state of being. It's somewhere in the middle. It's technically an action, but it's complicated. But the children remained quiet links. It connects those two ideas. One is the noun or pronoun itself. The other describes that noun or pronoun, what it's doing or what it is. Moving on, remember there are lots and lots of forms of to be. Linking verbs do not have to be a to be verb, but it does frequently show up. So here are some, in case you haven't heard all of them in a while. Am, is, are, was, were, has been, have been, had been, will be, shall be, may be, might be, can be, should be, would have, and been. So all of those are forms of to be, depending on, of course, tense, verb tense, which we haven't really talked about yet. And here are some other words you might want to think about when you're thinking about linking verbs. So it links the two parts of the sentence. It has a noun or a pronoun, and it has something that it's doing or is. So appear, become, feel, grow, look, remain, seem, smell, sound, stay, taste, and turn. So those are some things you might want to keep in mind. So for example, we will be there. So we and there, connecting it, will be. The apples are in the bowl. So the apples, their location, connecting those two ideas, are in the bowl. So after linking, we have helping, which are also known as main or auxiliary verbs. They have lots of names. So a helping or auxiliary verb helps the main verb express action or a state of being. So some examples of this. Helping verbs are when you're going to have a lot more of those sets of words for verbs, because quite a few of you in your introduction letters are actually using these complex helping or auxiliary verbs, and you're not identifying the complete verb phrase. So here are some examples. Many people in Africa can speak more than one language. So can speak are both the verb. They're collectively a verb. Can speak collectively. The auxiliary or helping. So can being that can is the helping verb here, and speak is the primary verb. So can is assisting speak to complete the sentence thought. The packages were sent to 401 Maple Street. Were sent. So sent being the primary verb, were giving you like time basically when it was done. Were sent being the collective verb for this sentence. And again, were being the helping verb, sent being the main verb, but collectively they are auxiliary or helping verbs. Kansas has been named the sunflower state. So Kansas has been named, has been being the connecting part, or not the connecting part, excuse me, the helping part for named. And then the ball should have been caught by the nearest player, caught being the primary verb, and should have been being the helping or auxiliary verbs. But again, the whole phrase right there All of those verbs put together are the sentence's verb. It's not just one word of that sentence, or of that phrase, it's the whole phrase. Commonly used helping verbs, obviously, to be, all the forms of do, have, and then some other random ones are can, could, may, might, must, will, would, shall, should, and those have a fancy name that are known as modals. Ooh, sorry guys. Modals are those conditional words. They're known as conditional because they make a sentence not a fact. It's more of like a condition. It's like, could clean my room, but will I? I should do my homework, but have I? And again, they're called modals, M-O-D-A-L-S, modals. We have, again, transitive and intransitive. So those transitive verbs are going to be those action verbs. So they directly describe the person, place, thing, idea, or animal. So those action verbs, think about those action verbs, those are going to be transitive. Now, intransitive, on the other hand, is going to need an assist. And that assist typically comes in the form of what is known as preposition, which I think we've talked a little bit about prepositions, but not extensively. I know in class we've talked a lot about prepositions and we practiced a little bit with them, but I'm not sure as much if we've done that in our online sessions. So prepositions are directional words. So prepositions basically give a direction about the noun. So something is happening with the noun, but it has to give you a direction. So here's some examples. The tree, I hid under the tree. I went around the desk. I went through the tunnel. So all those directional words, through, with, under, behind, around, towards, all of those words are going to be classified as what are known as prepositions. Funny fact, of is also one of them, which doesn't seem like a direction, but it is. It's classified as a preposition. Of is a preposition. So it kind of gives you directionality in the sentence, which I know that's a complex idea there. Let me see if I can find you a quick example. So again, it shows a relationship between a noun or pronoun and the other words in the sentence, so a direction. So Berlin, the capital of Germany, is located in the east. So of and in are prepositions. So in that sentence, it gives you that directionality, which I keep saying that word directionality. If you think about all the words, it really does, like under, over, through, on. All those words are prepositions that are all directional. Some of them are a little funky, like, again, of. So nouns, pronouns, verbs, all the types, prepositions, and we talked about modifiers as well. So modifiers are two different things. Modifiers are overall known as, modifiers are two categories. They fall into two categories. There is adjectives. Adjectives describe nouns or pronouns. And adverbs describe verbs. So you have adjectives and you have adverbs. Those are the only types of modifiers, and they are pretty easy to pick out because you just have to determine, is the modifier, the descriptive word, modifying the noun? Is it describing the noun or is it describing the verb? And based on what it's describing, you can identify it as either an adjective or an adverb. So don't let it really, trip you out. Don't let it freak you out. It's kind of way easier than it sounds. So just remember that it modifies something, it adds to something, it describes something. So adjectives and adverbs. Adjectives describe nouns or pronouns. Adverbs describe verbs. And fun fact about adverbs, they can actually describe adjectives as well, which is just a weird fun fact. But if at any point, your modifier is not right next to your noun, if it's an adjective, or your verb if it's an adverb, if it's not right next to its thing that it is modifying, that is known as a dangling modifier, which I know that came up in one of your videos earlier in the semester, which you didn't have to worry about as much at the time, but do know that your modifier should be very, very close to your thing that is being modified. If it's not, again, it's known as a dangling modifier, and dangling modifiers show up quite frequently in ACT tests. So just keep that in mind. Here are some things to think about when you think about adverbs. Adverbs are going to answer a question. So they say where, when, how often, how long, to what extent, or how much. They're going to answer one of those questions generally to add something to the sentence. Again, they're modified. They add something, and they're going to add something to the verb. They are, again, much, much easier than you think. And I actually do have a chart I'm probably going to post at some point for prepositions. There's a little chart here with prepositions. So I will be probably getting that out to you guys, because I think that might help just seeing those prepositions a little bit closer and up close, sorry. In hand and up close. Having a moment there. Now I want to review sentence organizations. Okay, so there's 4 types. There's simple, compound, complex, and compound complex. So you should, sorry guys, you have notes on all of these. I did type notes for sentence organizations, complete sentences, sentence issues, and sentence purposes. So a complete sentence is a simple sentence. Absolute minimum, a simple sentence. So a simple sentence has to have 3 parts, or all sentences have to have 3 parts. A subject, which is again a noun or a pronoun, a verb, so an action or a state of being, and it has to describe a complete thought. If it doesn't do those 3 things, it is either, well, if it doesn't do one of those 3 things, it's classified as, okay. If it is not a complete thought, but it has a subject and a verb, it's known as a dependent clause. If you put a subject and a verb and it doesn't have a complete thought, again, it's a dependent clause, but if you mark it as a sentence by itself, it's known as a fragment sentence. It can also be a fragment sentence if it's missing a subject or a verb. So a fragment sentence is missing either a subject, a verb, or a complete thought. A dependent clause has a subject and a verb, but it is not a complete thought, and it is attached to something else. So a complete sentence will always have a subject, a verb, and a complete thought. Always. When you build and add parts to that simple sentence style, you start to get your other kinds of sentences. But when you add, sometimes you run into the issue known as a run-on sentence. Run-on sentences are essentially when you have too many sentences, but they're not punctuated correctly together. So you can have 2 simple sentences glued together. There's 2 ways to do this. The first way is to add a semicolon. Quick and easy, semicolon. As long as they're fairly related, the 2 sentences can function together as one compound sentence. Option 2 is you can use a comma between the 2 sentences and a coordinating conjunction, which are going to be one of your fanboy words. So fanboys is for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. And I do have that written out for you on your notes, I think at least twice, potentially more times. But I do have your coordinating conjunctions listed for you there, as well as most of these notes again. But I just want to go over that just so you're clear on that. Remember, sentence issues like run-ons and fragments are not sentences. Run-ons are more than one sentence that has not been punctuated correctly, so it's too much, and a fragment is not one complete sentence yet. So it's not a sentence. It's not there yet. It's close, but it's not there. Those are sentence issues. When I talk about complete sentence types, I'm talking about simple sentences with subject, verbs, and complete thoughts, compound sentences, which are 2 or more sentences glued together properly with either your semicolon or your coordinating conjunction and a comma. So comma, then conjunction, not the other way around. Next, we have a complex sentences where your subordinating conjunctions come into play, and a lot of times you might think of these words similar to your prepositions, but not quite the same. So when you use any kind of word that makes the next part of it conditional or not a full thought, that is going to be where your dependent clauses come into play, and it's going to need an independent clause to go with it, which makes a compound sentence, because compound sentences have an independent clause. Yes, an independent clause, which is essentially a simple sentence, plus a dependent clause, so a subject and a verb, but not a complete thought. So think about when you add the word when, which, because, since. All of those make the next part of the sentence conditional in some way. So I was going to go to the store since the rain stopped. When it gets late, my eyes get very heavy. Those are both complex sentences because they have an independent clause that can be functioning by itself, but it also has a dependent clause that uses a subordinating word or phrase like when to signal that there needs to be more, or there needs to be a complete thought molded with the dependent clause. And compound complex sentences just merge the rules of both. So at least the bare minimum you have to have is 2 independent clauses and 1 dependent clause. Minimum. You can order these in any way you like. You don't have to order it independent clause, dependent clause. It doesn't matter how you order it as long as it has those 3 parts. So it needs to have 2 simple sentences and at least 1 dependent clause attached. So really, at least 1 simple sentence and 1 complex sentence. But together, it makes a compound complex sentence. Just one other note about complex sentences. Remember that if the dependent clause is at the beginning or in the middle, you need a comma. So if your dependent clause is the beginning, you need a comma after it and finish your independent clause. If your dependent clause is in the middle, you need 2 commas. So you need one before the dependent clause and one after the dependent clause. If it is at the end of your sentence, you do not need any punctuation. You just write it like you normally would a simple sentence. But just because there is no comma does not mean your sentence is a simple sentence. Keep that in mind. It's just a good indicator, but it doesn't mean there is a simple sentence. Just the same, remember that if you have a list of anything, whether it's a subject, a verb, or just a noun in the sentence, that does not change its organization. So for example, if I say I like the colors blue, green, and purple, that is not a complex sentence. It's not a compound sentence. It's not a compound complex sentence. It's still a simple sentence, even though it has a list and it does have commas. So don't get distracted by the comma. You have to know the function of each part so that you can tell me what type of sentence it is so you know how to punctuate it properly. And finally, promise. I know this is getting a little lengthy, but I do want to review everything because some of you guys are still struggling a good bit, and I just want to make sure everyone's good to go. So finally, we have the 4 purposes of sentences. So the first is really easy, declarative. It declares something, it states something. So declarative sentences are typically what we are going to use when we read or write. So not every sentence is over the top with emotion. Not every sentence is a question, but most of them are general statements. So we have mostly declarative sentences that we're going to read and use. That's why I didn't really ask you guys in your introduction letters to look for those, because most of your sentences, if not all of your sentences, are already declarative sentences. So I wouldn't ask you to find those other ones. But speaking of the other ones, we have exclamatory. Exclamatory is going to be denoted with a exclamation point. So you're going to see an exclamation point in it, and it's going to express some kind of emotion. It's going to be really intense, okay? So, wow, or yay, or some kind of expressed excitement, loudness. We have interrogative sentences. Interrogative, think about the word interrogate, interrogative. They're questions. When you interrogate someone, you question them. So interrogative sentences are questions. And finally, we have the imperative sentence. Imperative sentences are commands. They typically don't look like they have a subject, but it's actually an implied subject, and it's typically the pronoun you. So, please complete your work. Really, the sentence says, please, would you, or you should complete your work. There's an implied you, so pick up your shoes. You pick up your shoes. We don't say it. It sounds weird to listen to, but grammatically we understand that it's referring to you. It's command. So again, those imperative sentences are commands. They are expecting you to do something, and they have the implied pronoun you at the front. So it does have a subject. It's just implied. We know it's there, which again, if you watch the videos I've been posting, guys, you should know this already. You should have seen a lot of this. And again, I've been posting notes as well. So all the activities, all the review and everything should be that practice and review. It shouldn't be anything new. You should know most of this from elementary school on. We should just be reviewing. So if you're still really struggling with something, I really need to know. I'm hoping you guys are enjoying the games. I'm trying to make it a little less awful for you guys. It's not always, multiple choice kind of style stuff. It's not always, it doesn't always have to be so painful. So I am trying the games. I hope you guys are enjoying the games. Let me know if that's not working for you guys, and we'll try to figure something else out. I've been trying to give you guys notes. I hope you're using them and using that resource as much as you can. But they are always up and available to you. You can always rewatch the videos as needed. I made sure that everything was super accessible, or I tried to make sure everything was super accessible, and I tried to make sure that I'm going over things and giving you the practice. But let me know if I'm not, guys. I will do what I can to help you. And I appreciate a lot of you that are being really honest in your bell work. I do read it. I may not comment back to you every single time, but I do read it, and I do appreciate it, because I know some of you are saying, look, Ms. Jenkins, this is not working. I am still 100% lost, and I need more help. Well, here I am offering more of that help. So please, please, please let me know if you have questions, comments, concerns, if you need to vent, if you need to just say, hey, Ms. Jenkins, I need you to just go back, start from scratch. Like, I need more help. I can do that. I just need to be aware that you need that. And if you've managed to make it all the way to this end of the video, congratulations. You get a fair warning that Friday I will be giving you a pop quiz. Your pop quiz will be on the information we have just gone over. So I hope you have watched it to the end of this video, and everybody is super aware of their pop quiz that will be tomorrow, Friday, September 18th. So please, please, please get in contact with me if you are still struggling. All right, guys, be good. See you around.